Okay, so I'm gonna do a little rundown of how this game works, um, at least as far as I understand it, and what I've been doing so far. So this level that I'm on, I've been working on this for almost 6 hours now. I did not think a single level would take this long, but it's ridiculously intricate, so uh, yeah, it's pretty complex. So when I came into this level, the whole idea was to attempt to repair this base and get the train station working again. So you can see some remnants of the track up here. And as far as what was built when I came in, there's this whole power grid. So the way power works is there's a pump pumping water through this underground pipe into these boilers. A few of these boilers are stacked together to use the pressure from one pipe, and steam comes out. If you can see how like the one side has water and then this outlet is steam, goes to another underground pipe over to these steam engines. And the steam engines are all generating power that gets pushed out across the phone lines. Well, electrical lines, but they look like phone lines. Um, you can see if you click on a single pole, you can see all these things about what's actually using the power. So you can see a whole bunch of inserters, some machines that are building things, and there's all these graphs that I honestly haven't put a ton of work into understanding. Right now it looks like the boilers aren't even actually doing anything because the solar power is handling most of the load required for the grid. See the solar power up there, so that was already part of it as well. Um, this coal setup was already here. It's not mining any coal right now because, as you can see, the conveyor belts that the coal output by the miners is pouring onto are filled up. So if I just run across here and press F, collect some of this, make some space on the belts, these will start mining again until they hit basically this capacity. They just stop so that they don't continuously push things onto space where there is none. These these are called inserters. You can see some of them here. Unfortunately, I don't have anything working down here right now, so these inserters aren't doing anything, but we'll see them elsewhere. All these conveyor belts with the red were already here, and there were a bunch of furnaces over here turning these. They were building these steel beams out of iron plates, which we'll see elsewhere. This was a whole big section that I built just to handle some resources. There's copper down here. These are all stopped. And there was a steel deposit or an iron ore deposit over here that I worked through. So we'll go through or go back over to the section of the map that I'm actually utilizing right now. This little bug is pretty sweet. This was also something that you started this level off with. So just another thing too, all these conveyor belts running the coal over here, I had to do all this because I had to go searching for iron ore. I ran out. I needed way more. You can see the boiler or the steam engines are turning on. Since it's getting dark, obviously the solar panels can't do anything anymore. So I had to run these electrical lines and the conveyor belt to get coal over here, and I didn't really want to have to create a whole nother power generation system since there was a pretty substantial one built beforehand. It was easier to just create some of these poles and conveyor belts to bring power and coal over to this area. So right now this isn't working at full capacity that could be. I'm going to create a lamp. So if I press E, it brings up my inventory. This is my current inventory, and the things that I have the ability to craft right now, you can research further things. But I just crafted a few lamps. If you hover over, it'll show you the things that are available or what's required to make a single lamp. You just click a bunch of times and it'll automatically craft it. So you can automatically craft any of the items in the game, but really the idea is to automate the process and create things at scale, which is what the factories do and the point of all these conveyor belts is. So what I have here, this used to be a iron ore mining setup. There was iron ore up here that I had riding this conveyor belt down to these furnaces. And you can see the furnaces. I'll get rid of this. furnaces take coal, and they take in either iron plates or iron ore. So if they take iron ore, they make plates. If they take plates, they make steel. And these inserters are what actually grab the coal or the resources required to create something, and then another inserter takes the completed item and puts it onto the conveyor belt. So you can see these inserters actually have direction. Right now, the vertical line on the left with the arrow on the right determines that it's actually taking it from the left to the right, whereas this one you can see it's taking it from the right to the left. So I actually have a lot of this turned off right now because I have such a good iron ore flow in from this section of the map, which I'll get to, that it overloads this whole assembly I've built. So if I rotate, I actually had that rotated like this so that it flowed backwards, so it would essentially just stop the conveyor belt. So now this ore is going to flow up all the way around over to here, and we'll see these furnaces light up as they start to work through this ore again. I'm actually going to turn this back off because I've sort of built this like a recursive machine. It keeps flowing into itself, and you'll see some of these inserters work to kind of keep this like a closed loop, so I can turn on the ore flow for a bit, let it get into the system, work its way through, and you'll see the same pieces do a couple rounds. Actually, you know what? I have to also... yeah. Clear these out. Since these already had these steel plates in here, they wouldn't take ore. So you can see now, zoom in here. This is taking ore and attempting to make steel plates. Now, part of the problem with this setup I have is that this ore is holding up the conveyor belt. They can't place the items that they're creating until the ore is out of the way on the conveyor belt. And there's rules for how the inserters take things from conveyor belts and put them on. They'll take things from there's two sides to the conveyor belt. You can see these things are side by side. The inserters can take things from the left and the right, but they'll only place things on the far side. You can see all these are going. So these smaller furnaces, I have them set up to only take iron ore. These purple inserters you can actually set filters on. So I have this filtered to just take ore, which means that they won't attempt to create steel plates out of these completed iron plates. But then these bigger furnaces, which are faster down here, are only going to take, or they should theoretically only have there should only be iron plates coming down this far, and they'll take care of them. Now it seems we've... yes, so there's... You can see the iron ore coming back around for another round. So in order to make this a closed loop, I actually have these inserters set to filter by iron ore. So most of this ore should be picked up by the inserters handling these furnaces, but if any of it makes it past, these inserters will pick it up and move over here. So that's the general idea of how to mine resources and turn them into refined pieces to actually manufacture with. We'll go over here and look at what the mining operation actually looks like. There's just 3 turrets to kind of protect this little line I built. And I basically have to complete the objective with this round of mining because this is the last steel ore deposit I've found. Although there's plenty to be mined here. You can see on the right hand side, it'll pop up over here how much resources are still available. And as you can see, I've got this thing like flooded right now because there's far more ore than I've built the rig to actually be able to move through. The whole time that this is going on, there's these bugs. You can see I'll aggro a bunch of them and they'll chase me. Just get my turrets to wipe them out. The bugs are attacking you, and from what I understand, it's based off of the pollution that you generate. And the range of the turrets. Based on the pollution you generate, kind of pisses the bugs off. They're like the natives of the world you've landed in. And that causes them to go towards where the pollution's coming from and attack you. So, looks like we got to turn this flow on for a little longer. Really get some production going here. So, what's happened here is that we've generated, or we get this flow going, the ore goes through and it generates steel plates. And right now I have all the steel plates being collected in these inserters, and they're just going in a chest. So the inserter pulls it off the conveyor belt, puts it in the chest. And then I have a second set of inserters pulling from a chest and putting onto this conveyor belt, which leads to this production unit, which I'll explain here in a second. So we're going to take some of these generated plates. I thought I had some more. Maybe they're further down. What's in here? There's a few. There's all sorts of really nifty keyboard shortcuts and like right click and left click shortcuts to split things and automatically put them, you know, when I click on this, I have my inventory on the left and the chest on the right. And different combinations of control and shift and left and right click will put a single stack, put half of the stack, put all of the units, put half of the units that you have in your inventory. So you can see these immediately started filling up this conveyor belt and pushing plates up to here. And there's these inserters pushing things to these buildings. These are all assembly machines. They take items and create new items. So we'll start with a simple one up here. Actually have it turned off right now. I was using this one to generate copper wire, which is just an ingredient used in other pieces. I'm actually going to turn this iron ore off before I talk about this. That should keep it busy for a while. So we're going to start this production line again. Right now what I was trying to do is I needed to create solar panels, and solar panels took electrical circuits, copper plates, and steel beams. So I needed those three items flowing into an assembly machine that I had built just for making solar panels. So the copper pipe was the first thing. So I would click on the assembly machine, come over to where the copper pipe is, and just by the inserter being next to this and it recognizing that there was an empty slot for the recipe, it would start generating, or it would start moving things from this chest, which has the ingredient required, copper plates, and put it into the factory, the assembly machine. And as the assembly machine completes something, this inserter would move it onto the conveyor belt. So the next piece was, that's making some ammunition, was to create, I believe, the circuits. Yeah, so see the electrical circuit down here takes 3 copper wire and an iron plate. So if I turn this on and tell it to make electrical circuits, I have this little setup running, taking iron plates onto this conveyor belt, little underground deal here, and this arm is putting the iron plates into the factory, and this arm right here is grabbing the purple inserter right here is filtered to only grab copper pipes, and it's pulling them and putting them into the factory. And then as the factory finishes completing a circuit, this one will put it down here. And then the last piece is actually generating the solar panels. So that actually happens in this one. So the solar panel takes the copper plates, the steel plates, and the circuit. So if I started this, there's a little bit of maneuvering to get this whole thing to work, to get the circuits into here. So this inserter puts electrical circuits into this box. As soon as they're in this box, this inserter puts them into this box, and then this inserter puts them into the factory. And then these two inserters just have a box of steel pipes and copper plates that they're using to actually generate the solar panel. So as this fills up, we've completed one solar panel, and this inserter is putting it in. So I'm going to turn this all off because I don't actually need any more. I finished doing all those last night, so it stops using up resources. So you can see up here I have the current objective. I needed all these things. It was actually pretty substantial to get this amount of the plates and everything and the solar panels. You know, it all compounds. It takes, let's see here, something like 5 ore, I think, to make a single steel plate. Actually, no. You know how I can figure this out? If I go to the crafting. So if I want to make a steel plate, it takes 1 iron, or iron plate, it takes 1 iron ore. and then to make a steel plate, it takes 5 iron plates. And then in order to actually create the solar panels, it needs 5 of those steel plates. So you're talking about 25 iron ore just for one solar panel on top of the copper plates also required. And then the electronic circuit, there's 15 of them in each solar panel. And each one of those took 3 copper cables, so 45 copper cables, 15 iron plates just for a single solar panel. All these things stack, so you really have to make sure that you have pretty substantial flow of resources in order to get these compound items to keep building and actually get to the final products that you need. So I'm pretty close to having everything I need here. Actually, the only other thing I think I needed was to finish these armor-piercing rounds. So I've been collecting all the units that I need into these chests. So this right here is 2,000 of the steel plates. I only need 1,500. There's a whole bunch of the iron plates here. That's 2,800. And there's 3,000 of the copper plates. There's my 50 solar panels, and I'm already at 393 armor-piercing rounds. Looks like I actually have a few more to collect, so I'll grab them. Just get an idea of where I'm at. Put these in. So now we're at 551 out of the 800, so I need another 300. So these are set up to build these armor-piercing rounds. But it looks like something is out of what it needs. Probably the copper plates seem to be the first one to go. Yeah, this needs copper plates. It doesn't have enough. So we'll put half of these in there. You can see it starts putting them in. Now it's got enough. It's going to start making them. We'll put the other half into this section. I'm actually running pretty low on copper. I had a huge overflow of it from the sector way down here in the original section. And I just used gobs of copper for one of the previous objectives. So there is a pretty significant copper ore deposit you might have seen when I was over on the eastern side of the map. But I'm hoping that I don't actually need to break into that. I think I still have a pretty good amount. Yeah, I've got some extra copper in the car. And I have all the copper that I need to complete this objective. So this whole thing doesn't look anything like it did the first time around. When I first came over here and started, once I had the coal over here and these first couple basic conveyor belts attached to the iron ore deposit, there weren't nearly as many furnaces, and at that point I was just using this section to generate iron plates. And then it gave me the objective of having to do the steel plates, and I probably had 12 of these, which is, I think, from here to here. I added a bunch more and then went and ripped all the steel furnaces out of the old area up to here because I didn't want to have to transfer the ore, coal all the way from the original area to here and then ore back over there. Each one of these conveyor belts themselves costs iron plates and an iron gear, and an iron gear costs 2 iron plates. So 3 iron plates, and you actually have to, you got to generate all these things. The problem is that if you don't build a factory to build these things, you have to craft them by hand. So if I wanted to build one thing that required a few other things, I'm going to click on this, and you'll see it pop up in the left. It first has to craft the gear, and then craft the actual transport plate. And if I didn't have the other sub recipe pieces ready, the iron plate, it would have to craft that first. The game basically forces you into a position where you would have to spend an inordinate amount of time handcrafting things, and it wants you to build the factories in order to automate most of this. And a lot of the fun just comes from seeing how you've built it and realizing that you've done something like stupid or inefficient and correcting that to get it to work better. And honestly, there's a million things that I don't like about this setup. This whole verticality thing and the fact that I've had to use these filtered inserters to keep wrapping around. Actually, as I'm sitting here talking, not paying attention, to turn this back on. This is not how this should work. I should be able to handle this constant flow and have something taking all the generated iron plates, putting them in something, and then something else grabbing those. But I kind of just was being quick and dirty about getting this up and running and trying to focus more on the production side and not just on the resource side. So let's see how this, there's another 30 there, there'll probably be just a few more over here. 31 versus 33, plop these in. So I have to get another, what am I at, 615, so another 185, and then pack everything into the car and my player inventory. And I'm hoping it ends just the level and moves me on to another one, but there's a good chance that it's actually going to require me to start repairing the railroad sections that are over on that side. And the whole idea with when you first came into this level was repair the train system so that you could mine in these faraway mines. I'm guessing something way further to the west that you would never want to have to build conveyor belts from. And the whole idea with the trains is to connect big sections, and you can automate the trains to stop at certain stops and wait to fill it. There's all this logic you can put in behind it, like wait until a certain number of cars is filled up with resources and then it moves again. So it's pretty hands-off. But I'm guessing once I have all these pieces in place, it wants me to build all this, take it all in the car, and then drive out to wherever these mines are that used to have trains running between this main starting base and the mines, and get a much heavier resource flow going. Because if I go back over here, now that there's a bit more explanation in place, also, these are pretty cool. These are labs. You can generate these different colored beakers or whatever, and I just pressed T to bring up the technology list. You can research different things like increased efficiency or different items, and like the railway system, there's enhancements you can make to the railway system. One of the first things you had to do when coming into this level was research how to make all the locomotive pieces. And if I come down in here, you can see that I still have these assembly machines set up for this green science goo, basically. And you put the different colored science goos into the labs, and the labs will just research things. So actually, I could set one of these up. So let's say I want to do this one. It requires 100 of red, 100 of green. So we'll say research that, and then I can, oh, you know what? I don't actually have any of the green, but I thought there was some in these. Wait, these are assembly machines. Chest maybe? I don't know. But you would just put some of the red goo and the green goo into the labs, and they'd all light up and they'd start doing the research. And then it's just time until you can actually utilize whatever it is I research. You would get rail signals and rail chain signals, and so certain things unlock new crafting items, certain things just unlock perks that you can apply to buildings. So the original idea was repair all this, and I'm guessing that, I mean, I've kind of ruined it here. You can see there's railing over here too. So all this wasn't here when I first started. This rail used to go like this, or probably more like down through here and then over. So these, actually no, there's rail right here. So these inserters would grab things off the rail, put them into the chest, and then these inserters would grab them from the chest, put them in here, and so on and so forth. So, as far as I can tell right now, is once I collect all the things it's asking for, where did I park the car? Actually, my car's hurting a little bit. Grab this repair kit, come down here. Repair that. So, there's turrets you build. So, as you saw, I was crafting those armor-piercing rounds. I had originally just set up the assembly machines to craft the regular rounds that you need to build the armor piercing rounds, and it also helped too because I put a bunch of these turrets up. They are a necessity to actually keep your stuff alive, because the nasty bugs, which look exactly like Zerglings, will come and wreck your shit. Alright, so let's see where we're at here. Another 44, probably 47 over here. Grab them quicker. 89. So 96 to go, and then I've got all the required rounds. So this has gone on long enough, so I'll cut it here. Hopefully that gives everybody an idea of what this game is all about.